president's threat yesterday on social media to increase tariffs against China by an additional 50% in response to their retaliation. Has he signed anything in terms of an executive order, any documentation around that? Will that additional 50% go into effect tomorrow?
They will be going into effect at 12:01 a.m. tonight, so effectively tomorrow, yes. I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why...
Silence. That was the main event of the White House press conference that millions had been waiting for. 4 minutes, and everything sank. No bold statements. No exact figures. Not a single clear answer. Only confused eyes, a trembling voice, and most importantly, a complete lack of control. For many Americans, this moment became a symbol of a real crisis. Not just economic, but institutional. Karoline Leavitt, the chief press secretary of the 47th President of the United States, was supposed to address the nation and inspire confidence. But instead of confidence, the country received what is now being discussed even at kitchen tables: panic, incompetence, and a hidden threat to the Constitution. The questions were simple, the answers frighteningly empty. Journalist: if the goal is to impose tariffs on foreign manufacturers to protect Americans, why did the president personally ask auto giants not to raise prices? Leavitt's response: that was a private discussion. I'm not sure he actually said that. There it is, modern American politics. Maybe he said it, and maybe not. How can one manage an economy if there isn't even a prepared answer for basic questions? In recent weeks, amid the introduction of new tariffs, the U.S. auto industry has found itself on the brink. General Motors, Tesla, Ford are reporting a sharp increase in production costs. Experts estimate that tariffs on components from Mexico and Canada could raise the price of a single car by $4,000 to $10,000. And now the question, who will pay for this? The answer is obvious: the consumer. While the White House plays the silence game, car prices are rising, but wages are not. But economic uncertainty is only part of the overall collapse. At the same briefing, another question was asked, one for which the entire country wanted a clear answer. Why did the White House ignore a court ruling and deport a man who was under federal protection from deportation? The response: who employs that judge? This is not just rhetoric. It is a direct attack on the judicial branch. Today, the judge is the wrong one. Tomorrow, the law is the wrong one. And the day after, the election is the wrong one. When power enters a state of maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, the country begins to live in a state of institutional paralysis. Meanwhile, the market is collapsing. March 14th became a day that will go down in history. The Dow Jones fell by 720 points, the S&P by 113, the Nasdaq by nearly 500. The crash, the sharpest in recent months. And all of this is happening amid White House discussions of a potential third term for the president. A journalist asked directly, does the president plan to run for a third term despite the constitutional limits? Leavitt: that's not something we're thinking about right now. We have work for the next 4 years. And that's when everything became clear. No denial, no statement in the spirit of the Constitution is sacred. Just an evasive, not thinking about it yet. These words sparked a wave of discussion on X, on Reddit, and in the evening news. Americans began asking themselves a simple question: if the Constitution is no longer the limit, what's next? From that moment on, the entire press conference turned into a series of evasions, meaningless phrases, rehearsed statements, and most importantly, a total absence of a plan. What was the administration supposed to talk about that day? Lowering inflation, helping retirees, supporting small businesses. And what did it talk about? Obsession with a third term, vague rhetoric, and a direct attack on judges. It is in moments like this that not only the market collapses, trust collapses. Apple lost $160 billion. Tesla, $125 billion. Nvidia, $180 billion. Meta, Google, Microsoft, together more than $350 billion. These are not figures from science fiction. These are official stock exchange data. And all of it in one day. The market wasn't afraid of tariffs. It was afraid of unpredictability. While the administration remains silent, allies are stepping aside. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, on his very first official visit, goes not to Washington but to Paris. He meets with Macron, then with Starmer. The message is clear. America is no longer partner number one. Canada announces, Tariffs on electricity exports to the U.S., 25%. Cancellation of tax incentives for American electric vehicles. Diversion of oil and gas supplies to Europe and Asia. This is not diplomacy. This is economic war. And it seems the U.S. is losing it. The EU supports Canada. Ursula von der Leyen, U.S. actions are a threat to global logistics. Even countries like Sweden and Norway are beginning to discuss new military contracts with Canada. And once, that was Washington's prerogative. And against this backdrop, a total silence from the White House. No statement, no plan, only evasion of responsibility. While Washington remains silent, Wall Street is on fire. In just 3 days, the market lost $4 trillion. Oil prices are rising. Gas to gay. 2. Tariffs are hitting food. Walmart loses 12%. Amazon, 9%. Even Bitcoin is falling. Inflation is starting to rise again. And all of this at a time when, instead of anti-crisis measures, the country is debating whether Trump will run for a third term. Now let's be honest. Is this a strategy? Or chaos? The American economy is no longer fighting external enemies. It is collapsing from within. And if yesterday $4 trillion vanished from the market, what will vanish tomorrow? Share your thoughts. Can a country survive a crisis of trust in its own government if those in power cannot even answer direct questions from journalists?